Okay, volume 9. That's where we're at in the Bible story. Or where I'm at. Ooh, these books have not been, they've probably just been put away for so long. Yeah, really long. And try to be very careful. Because these ends right here on this one is curved up. So give me a second. Just try to straighten them out because they probably were folded like that 70 years ago when they bought them for Cousin Robert. And Nita probably read them. And of course, my husband got to read them, probably. Because I remember when we came to visit her, Billy's, my husband's grandma. Okay, part 2, story 7, denied by a friend. Just where all the disciples went that night, we don't know. Some may have gone to nearby Bethany to break the awful news to Lazarus, Mary, and Martha. Others may have taken cover on the woodland hillside till danger was past. So far as we know, only Peter and John kept up with the mob as it hurried Jesus back to the city. John, who had friends in high priest palace, managed to get inside and watch the trial of his beloved master. Peter followed afar, but when he arrived, John had got him into the servants' quarters, where he ran into a lot of trouble. The story John tells us is a very sad one. Jesus was taken first to Ananias, then to Caiaphas, who presided over the Sanhedrin, the government body of Israel at that time. Eventually, some of these members were waiting for Jesus when he was brought in. Others hurried to the palace as soon as they knew he had been captured. It was illegal to hold trial in the middle of the night, but so great was the hatred of the chief priests for Jesus that they were already breaking their own laws to get rid of him. Most likely the chief reason for the night trial was that they wanted to have it all over before the people who loved Jesus found out what had been done. If he were already condemned to death, what could anybody do about it? If only there had been a few children about, I'm sure they would have done what they could to help. One of them at least would have called out, "Leave him alone, he's our friend." But alas, they were all in bed. Yeah, could be a good imagination. Okay. So there stood Jesus, alone and friendless, in the midst of priests and rabbis. How they hated him. They were jealous because he was so popular with the common people. They were so envious of his power to heal the sick. They were angry because the truth and beauty of his teachings were showed up the foolishness of theirs. How now they had him where they wanted him, and they would never let him go. And then, of course, it's another Van Lee, or D. Van Lee. illustration. And it's Jesus sitting in trial in front of the high priest. And if you really think about it, yeah, they were breaking their own law, having a trial at night. Because, according to their laws, they weren't supposed to. Okay, turn the page. Okay. There was no chance for fair play at such a trial. Jesus was as good as condemned before he got there. The high priest began to ask Jesus about his disciples and his teachings, suggesting that he was trying to form a secret society. Jesus said there was nothing secret about his work. I have spoken openly to the world, he said. I have always taught in the synagogues and in the temple, where all Jews come together. I have said nothing secret. Why do you ask me? Ask those who have heard me what I said to them, and to them they know what I said. At this, one of the officers standing by struck Jesus with his hand and said, "Is that how you answer a high priest?" With wonderful patience, Jesus kept calm and respectful. If I have spoken wrongly, bearing witness to the wrong, he said, but if I have spoken rightly, why did you strike me? Now false witnesses were called to say that Jesus had said and done things that were wrong, but they didn't agree. One contradicted another. The trial was getting nowhere. Then two men came up afterwards and declared, "This fellow said, I am able to destroy the temple of God and build it in 3 days. What have you say to this?" asked the high priest. Jesus did not reply. He had said something like this, but not about the temple these men were talking about. He had meant the temple of his body, that he would rise up in 3 days after his death. But what was the use of telling these people? They wouldn't understand. "Have you no answer to make?" roared the high priest. What is what is it that these men testify against you?" Still Jesus kept silent, and all the crowd mob wondered. Having no more witnesses, the high priest decided he must try to get Jesus to condemn himself. Rising to his feet, he cried, "I assure you, by the living God, tell us if you are the Christ and the Son of God." Jesus had to answer now, for he didn't deny his divinity or his mission, though it meant his death. "You said so," he said calmly, which is the same as saying yes. Then he asked, "I tell you, hereafter you will see the Son of Man seated on the right hand of power and coming in the clouds of heaven." At this, the high priest tore his robes in fury. "He has uttered blasphemy," he shrieked. "Why do you still have Why do we still need witnesses? You have now heard his blasphemy. What is your judgment?" "He deserves death," they cried together. They would have killed him right then had they dared. But they couldn't put anyone to death without the permission of the Roman governor. So they sent him bound to Pilate, and still at night. And this is the Roman soldier, and they're taking him to Pilate. And that's what it's a Van Lee, a D Van Lee. I had to make sure that it was a Van Lee. Okay, he probably got the commission to do all these. Okay, okay. Then it says, while waiting, the men spat on him and struck him. Someone covered his head with a sack while the mob sneered, prophesy to us, you Christ. Who is it that struck you? Meanwhile, in the servants' hall, Peter had been having a hard time too. As he warmed his hands by the fire, one of the maids saw him. Were you not with Jesus of Galilee? No, said Peter, never saw the man. As the maid went back to cook, crowded, but Peter was too worried to notice. As the maid went away, a cock crowed, but Peter was too worried to notice. In other words, the rooster crowed once. Okay, a little later, another servant came over to him, and after taking a good look said to the other who had been standing around, "This fellow was with Jesus of Nazareth. He is the one who cut off Malchus' ear." And I don't know what you're talking about, cried Peter. He said with an oath. He probably, since he's a sailor, he probably made the awfulest. Probably reverted back to his sailor talk. That's just an idea, okay? Don't quote me on that. But the other was not satisfied. They said, "You are a Galilean. Your accent betrays you. You are one of them." At this, Peter began to curse, see, and to swear, saying, "I am not. I don't know anything about him." Just then, the cock crowed again. The rooster crowed again. And Peter remembered how Jesus had said to him, "Before the rooster cock crowed twice, before the rooster crows twice, you would have denied me thrice. You would deny me 3 times." Suddenly, looking up, he caught sight of Jesus, his hands bound and the marks of suffering on his face. And the Lord turned and looked upon Peter, and their eyes met. Okay, their eyes met. Peter was all broken up. Leaping to his feet in shame and sorrow, he rushed outside and wept bitterly. Yeah, he was so upset that he denied him 3 times. And we have a Manning D. Van Lee, 1957. And, it's a 4-pager. You get it in the frame. Yeah, it's a little blurry, but it's the book. You gotta think this is a 70-year-old book. Okay. And the caption reads, after Peter, from the third time in the court of the high priest, had denied knowing his master, Jesus looked at him as the soldier led him away, and it broke Peter's heart. And yeah, I would too. So he knew he was going to do it. Okay, so that was part 2, story 7. So it's time for the break, and then I'll finish this out, and this will be the end of part 2, and we'll start on the rest of the book. See you in a minute.